Good morning and welcome to our continuing discussion on stormwater planning. My name is Don McWilliams. I'm with the City of Bellevue. I'll be your moderator today. Today I'm introducing Todd Hunsdorfer of King County. Todd's going to be talking to us about our Green Duwamish, a watershed-wide stormwater strategy. And if you could please enter your questions in the chat box, we'll address those at the end of the presentation. All right, Todd, it's all yours.
Thanks, Don. Thanks everybody for making it to this presentation. I'm pretty excited to share with you the progress that we've been making in the watershed. And first, though, before I dive in, I want to make sure that I've clearly identified my role in this initiative. So I'm employed by King County, but I'm really here as a representative of the Green Duwamish stormwater strategy, and this work. The work embodied in this effort is meant to provide a glimpse into the dedication and commitment that all our partners bring to the strategy. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for their continued engagement. I know there's a few people attending this presentation who also participate in this effort, and I just want to start by saying thank you to all the OGD partners, and particularly the folks on my team with me, Allison Schweitzer, Blair Scott, Nora Cates, and Carly Grail. So jump right in. Quick outline of the presentation. I just want to orient some folks to the flow. If you're not already familiar with where the Green Duwamish Watershed is located, there's a little map here. And for the sake of the presentation, I'm not planning to spend a lot of time discussing the health of the river. Right, but it's worth mentioning that in 2019, American Rivers listed the Green Duwamish as the 4th most endangered river in the United States. And this ranking is based on a few criteria, including the significance of the river to local communities and the magnitude of the threat to the river and associated communities in light of climate change. Plus, there are other characteristics kind of associated with water quality and salmon populations. In addition, right, we have a Superfund site, which I'm sure some of you are likely aware of, right? This is particular interest to our Green Duwamish Watershed group for a few reasons. You know, it's the last 5 miles of the river. There are a number of cleanup actions already taking place here that are required by law, and there's a real desire to avoid recontamination now and once the cleanup is done. So we also know that there's significant potential for recontamination from stormwater runoff upstream of the Superfund site. And before jumping into the details of what we're currently doing, there's a context, there's a little timeline here. And in 2014, the mayor of Seattle and the county executive partnered to launch an effort called our Green Duwamish. I can't believe it was 7 years ago, but effectively the task was to develop strategies to strengthen communities by working to improve air, land, and water conditions in the Green Duwamish watershed. And this initiative is, it's intended to increase coordination of current work in the watershed at the local, state, and federal levels to manage habitat restoration, salmon recovery, flood control, stormwater management, public health, social equity, environmental cleanups, economic development, like everything that's happening in the watershed, right? Including open space preservation, water quality, and more. So the watershed advisory groups were formed in 2015 to kind of wrestle with all of these concepts, and they were instrumental in organizing the effort around 4 major themes, including cleaner air, access to open space, adapting to climate change, and improving stormwater management. So phase 2 of the initiative right here kicked off at the beginning of 2016 with a focused effort on improving stormwater management in the watershed. So practitioners gathered to begin work on creating this stormwater, watershed-wide stormwater management strategy, and a series of workshops culminated in a shared vision, mission, goals, objectives, strategies, all part of the watershed-wide stormwater management strategy. And that document has been sort of foundational and instrumental in shaping the completion of the implementation plan here at the end of 2020. And to orient folks to the 7 goals that we have, quick plug for John. John, thank you for introducing the goals in your last presentation. If you're here in the room, I don't know, but I appreciate the warm up. And this vision, the vision that we have for the watershed is that in the Green Duwamish Watershed, stormwater runoff is sustainably managed to support and enhance the environment, human health, and the economy. It's a very broad, overarching, ambitious vision, and we're planning on getting there with these 7 goals. So our mission is to improve and accelerate watershed-scale stormwater runoff management actions in the Green Duwamish Watershed, collaboratively with community, jurisdictions, agencies, nonprofits, and businesses. And we'll manage the quality and quantity of stormwater runoff by preserving and restoring receiving waters, securing sustainable funding resources, aligning non-regulatory and regulatory interests. And hopefully, some of you are able to attend the mapping tool presentation that I gave earlier with Laura Noakes and Christian Nielsen, but that is related to aligning the non-regulatory and regulatory interests. And then in addition, advancing equity, social justice, and the economy, and prioritizing actions with multiple benefits. So these are our 7 goals. Probably I'm not going to read through them, but it's important to understand that nested under these goals are objectives, and each of these objectives have a number of strategies. And this is all laid out in the watershed-wide stormwater strategy document that's found at this website here. This is our blog, and there's a document library, and you can access all of that information and follow the blog for updates, which is pretty exciting. A number of things that I want to discuss include the partnerships that exist within the watershed and within this effort. It's a broad, diverse group of partner organizations here. Many of them are here, and many of them have different ways and different approaches to managing stormwater. So we don't have a formal organizational structure. There is no governance structure defined. This has been based on the feedback of our partner organizations. And what we're building together this organic way of working and collaborating and convening around how we manage stormwater in the watershed. We've heard how important it is for each of these partner organizations to maintain their individual autonomy, and this is challenging, right? Like, so honoring that desire, in addition to working on creating the types of efficiencies at scale, can be a really difficult tightrope to walk. And I'm continuously encouraged by the dedication and commitment of these organizations to make it work. So we're in this place here, kind of realizing that, in order to solve what we're calling the stormwater problem, we need to be working in concert to accomplish those goals, and kind of negotiating the challenges associated with like maintaining that autonomy and meeting these common goals is a priority. So one of the ways we've achieved this tightrope, this balancing act, has been through our co-design approach. And John mentioned this quite a bit in his presentation just before this, related to the Stormwater Investment Plan at King County and the upcoming Stormwater Summit. So to meet these individual needs of our partners, in 2018, we had a pretty lengthy discussion over more than one workshop about the method of participation that would make the most sense. And it was clear that that participants were interested in being involved in a more active role than just being, you know, made aware or informed, or even, you know, brainstorming ideas. Ultimately, the group settled on this co-design approach here, where there's a shared sense of ownership and commitment, and folks can choose to be part of the decision making. And this is a very iterative process, right? Where we convene, we discuss the elements of a product that ought to be considered in the creation of that product. It gets drafted, it gets reiterated and edited and commented on, and then redrafted again. It's very long. It's a very long process, but it's very rewarding, right? And it's a really incredible way to share in that commitment and share in the outcomes that we're looking for. So I thought John did a really wonderful job further describing the principles of co-design in his presentation. So we use that co-design process to write our first implementation plan. And you can see here some of the contents of the implementation plan. You know, we define the current conditions for each of the goals. We imagine a desired future state that we are hoping to attain by accomplishing our goals, and we describe the actions we're taking in addition to proposing some possible future actions that ought to be considered. The implementation plan also describes a process for adaptively managing the work that's described in the plan itself, and annual reporting. This is challenging, and I think what this document identifies is just the breadth of work that already exists in the watershed, how incredible it is, and how there's a lot more opportunity for us to work together on achieving the goals in this strategic plan. So we're still struggling with how we link these actions to sort of baseline conditions for each goal in order to measure our progress. The mapping tool that was discussed earlier is our pathway forward in that area, and it's a spatial representation of current conditions. And in the future, we're hoping to develop that further in order to measure our progress towards achieving each of the goals described earlier in this presentation. So where are we headed? This mapping tool, SMapper, it's in our code, it's open source. It will be pushed out here to the partner agencies this week and for testing. And effectively, it helps phase 2 permittees to meet their watershed characterization permit requirements in the NPDES phase 2 municipal permit, and the prioritization requirements as well for the Stormwater Management Action Planning requirements in the permit. It compares basins within jurisdictions using existing spatial data, and that data is all available for download. If you're looking for more information on this particular tool, I would encourage you to check out the presentation from earlier this morning, and email me directly if you want to get any more information. But I'm really excited about the direction this is headed. In addition, we have formed some subgroups. So there's a subgroup for the mapping tool. There's also a coordination subgroup, and that effort is focused on reducing duplicative efforts in the watershed. So, you know, the coordination subgroup has been communicating with other regional efforts that have overlapping goals to our stormwater strategy. For instance, the Raya 9 group, although that group is primarily focused on salmon populations, we know that poor stormwater quality can negatively impact salmon populations. And so where can we work together on maintaining and preserving habitat, as well as improving water quality for salmon? We have been working with, communicating with the Storm group on education and outreach. We want to avoid putting any additional effort into something that a group has already started working on. And we also have a funding subgroup as well that just convened last week for the first time. There's some discussions there around how the Watershed Coalition can support the individual grant applications of our partner agencies, as well as helping to explore the world of public-private partnerships within the watershed. In addition, we are also looking at a number of pilot studies within the watershed. I think this is one of the most intriguing and yet untapped areas where this coalition can help advance our stormwater management knowledge. We have a very dedicated group of partner agencies that manage stormwater from the entirety of the watershed, and we have an opportunity to use that to better our knowledge, and specifically looking at watershed-based pilot studies. So we're currently with some partner agencies having conversations about temperature gauges with the Green River Coalition and Urban Water Partnership, as well as Ecology and Green River College, as a kind of a training program for emerging environmental students and getting a better understanding of temperature impairments in the Middle Green. Also, this concept of smart computerized management of assets. So looking at remote flow control capabilities for smart watersheds within several tributaries of the Green Duwamish Basin. And then we also have this SAM funded project for creating a way of managing and tracking mobile businesses throughout the watershed. And we'll be talking more about this in the coalition, but I'm really excited that we're part of something that allows for advancing our knowledge in all aspects on how we manage stormwater. So here's a contact slide and the vision for the effort. I was really hoping that we could have a nice conversation about where it's headed. I know there are a number of ideas, and I'm really excited about engaging with everybody on the call today, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the dedicated effort of all of our partners. So with that, I will conclude presentation.
All right, thank you, Todd. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, so if you have questions, put them in the chat, please. I have a couple questions for you. So the mapping tool you were referring to, you said it's going to be going out to your partner agencies soon. Is that a tool that you're going to publish to all of King County at some point?
Yeah, you know, all the data is there, so that's a possibility. And you know, much of the base data is applicable to all of Puget Sound. So, you know, we have been really intentional about the workflow and working as a coalition to kind of work through the process of how the tool functions. But all of the data in the background is available to everybody. And yeah, I'm excited. It's all open source. So I'm happy to share that with anyone who wants it. It's currently applicable to the watershed. So, you know, if for instance, Don, if you want to play around with it, you're welcome to, but you don't necessarily get to use it within Bellevue right now. And, but that's something we can work on in the future, you know.
Okay.
I don't want it to be an obstacle for anybody.
Okay, that's good to hear. You mentioned something that caught my ear in today's smart environment. You said smart watersheds, and you said you were looking at doing some remote flow control.
Yeah. So I think actually there's a couple presentations at this conference related to that, and we're still in the exploratory phase. So I don't want to jump too much into it, and I do want others to, you know, if you're interested, if that piques your interest, to check out the presentations. I think they're happening on Wednesday, maybe, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this. You know, taking advantage of the technology. Like we're in this pandemic world. We're having a conference, and none of us are sharing a space together. It's pretty amazing. And so that type of technology, to be able to share information and interact remotely like this, we should be thinking about how we can use that to help better manage stormwater. And so, you know, it's something I'm looking forward to within the watershed, and thinking about, you know, realizing the greatest outcomes by being more intentional about where we do the work and how we work together.
It's exciting. I'll be interested to see how that works. We have a question that came in. Would you say our Green Duwamish effort was driven, created at the staff or executive level? And was there an outside interest or demand for this collaboration?
Oh, wow. The effort was initially created at the executive level. I mentioned in 2014, the mayor and the executive, you know, they agreed that there needed to be more attention paid to the watershed. I think, though, that where we are now is very different than where the executive maybe initially imagined it. I will say that where we are now is more broadly, I think, taking advantage and working on leveraging existing resources in a way that I don't think anybody imagined initially, right? So the county sort of, and John mentioned this in his presentation, the county had a history of kind of working with others by proposing solutions and kind of being well resourced and louder than other people in the room. And that's not the approach that we want to be taking anymore. There is so much incredible knowledge out there, and we realize how important it is to just make those conversations possible, and that's really the space where we're heading now. So it's driven very much by the staff, although it was created by the executive. And hopefully, Mark, that helps to answer your question. Related to the second part of it, I don't think that there was a lot of demand for collaboration, to be totally honest with you. And a big part of that is I think related to how well resourced each of us are at our own organizations, and how much support we get from our own leadership around meeting the obligations of our municipal permit versus doing the thing that gets us the greatest outcome. And so there's this tension there, and it leads to, I think, having blinders on to just accomplishing the things that you're responsible for.
All right, thank you, Todd. We have another question. You mentioned mobile businesses tracking. Was that referring to identifying, preventing potential IDDEs from those sources?
Yeah, that's thanks, Scott. Yeah, so this is a SAM funded study. Effectively, what we're doing is allowing phase two permittees to add to their commercial database by being inclusive of mobile businesses. So we're doing a lot of data scraping from existing user review sites, for instance, to identify businesses that are labeled as being mobile, and then creating a common shared database where jurisdictions within the watershed can share information about ownership, incidences, like you mentioned, Scott, and then allow for a coordinated effort on providing education and outreach. You know, one issue with, I think, having mobile businesses within your jurisdiction is not even being able to connect with them to talk to them about the practices that they have, let alone, you know, finding them when they're maybe doing something they shouldn't be doing. You know, my thought is that most people want to do the right thing, but a lot of people don't know what the right thing is. So if you can't find a mobile business because they're on the move, it makes it really challenging to connect with them.
All right, very good. So one last question for you. In your implementation plan, does it identify specific retrofits, or is it just kind of outline strategies and then the retrofits are going to come later?
Yeah, it's more of this. It's more of the second part. So the implementation plan outlines planned actions and programs. So, you know, as that relates to retrofits, for instance, there's a line item in the implementation plan that says develop retrofit prioritization strategy, and then that's something that King County has signed on to. But it doesn't specifically say, you know, build, you know, construct 3 retrofits in this tributary, for instance, because it's only identifying things that are currently planned or budgeted for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't see any more questions. Todd, thank you for your work on this. You guys have been at this for a long time. This is exciting.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks, John. It feels, this is something I want to stress, like that social infrastructure piece. It takes a long time to build. It takes so much longer than actual infrastructure. I am confident that it will yield benefits beyond anything that we can imagine, and I'm really excited about the direction we're going.
Yeah, we're all paying attention, so good luck. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.